Jason had never imagined his quest for ancient relics would bring him to a place like this. The air felt thick with mystery as he stepped into the dark cavern, the hum of the hidden portal echoing in his ears. He had followed old maps, rumors, and cryptic clues to this forgotten place, an alien city, long abandoned and almost erased from history. What was supposed to be a treasure hunt, a simple exploration of lost technologies, had quickly turned into something far more dangerous. But Jason, the young explorer, wasn't one to shy away from danger. The map had promised him greatness, knowledge, technology, the secrets of civilizations long gone. He had heard whispers of a forgotten palace, hidden deep within the ruins, a place of incredible power. It was said to hold secrets that could change the course of history, and Jason wasn't about to miss out on the chance to uncover them. As he stepped closer to the portal, he felt a strange pulse of energy radiate from the entrance. It was an unsettling sensation, unlike anything he had ever felt before. Yet driven by curiosity and ambition, he pressed on. The portal flickered before him, a swirling vortex of light and energy. With one final glance at the dark ruins behind him, Jason stepped through. The world around him twisted as he passed through the portal. When he landed on the other side, he found himself in an entirely different place, vast, grand, and unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering spires of crystalline material stretched toward the sky, glowing with an ethereal light. The architecture was a mix of beauty and mystery, with intricate designs and alien symbols covering every surface. Jason felt small, insignificant, like an intruder in a world far beyond his comprehension. Before he could take in his surroundings, the air shifted, and a voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Insolent human," the voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. "You've entered the wrong orifice, one you've defiled." Jason froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned, his gaze locking onto the source of the voice. Standing before him was a figure that immediately commanded respect. She was tall, easily over 7 feet, and her posture was regal, almost divine. Her skin glowed faintly, a smooth shade of violet that shimmered under the soft light. Her eyes were a piercing shade of silver, cold and unyielding. The way she carried herself made it clear that she was no ordinary being. Her presence was intimidating, her gaze cutting through him like a blade. She wore a regal outfit, adorned with alien symbols and intricate designs that spoke of power and history. The Mistress, as Jason would later come to know her, was the ruler of this place, a being of unimaginable strength and intellect, and she was furious. Jason, still in shock, stammered, his mind racing to comprehend the situation. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know." His voice faltered. The words didn't seem to matter, not to her. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Your ignorance is no excuse, human," she said, her voice like a whip cracking through the air. "You've desecrated something sacred. This is my domain, and you have violated its very heart." Jason tried to recover, holding his ground. He had faced dangerous situations before, but this was unlike anything he had encountered. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice steadying. "I didn't know, I'm exploring. I didn't mean any harm." The Mistress's lips curled into a slight, condescending smile. "You've trespassed in the most sacred of places, defiled an ancient relic of my people. Do you even know where you are, human? Do you know the significance of what you've just done?" Jason shook his head. "No, I had no idea. I'm just trying to learn about your history, your people." "You know nothing," she interrupted, her tone sharp. "You are nothing more than a thief, stealing from what doesn't belong to you." Jason took a step back, his mind racing. He had never intended to offend anyone, least of all someone so powerful, but he was beginning to realize that he had stumbled into something far beyond his understanding. I thought this place was abandoned. I didn't think anyone lived here anymore," Jason said, his voice quieter now. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble." The Mistress regarded him with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. Her gaze was unrelenting, and Jason could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. You may think your presence here is an accident, but your actions have consequences, she said. You've broken the sanctity of this place, and for that, you will be punished. Jason swallowed hard, the gravity of the situation finally sinking in. What do you want from me? How can I make this right? The mistress's eyes glinted with something Jason couldn't quite place. You will come with me, she ordered. We will see if you can atone for your ignorance. If you are truly as innocent as you claim, you will prove it. If not. She trailed off, the unspoken threat hanging in the air. Jason hesitated for a moment, but something in her tone made it clear that resisting was not an option. He nodded, his mind still spinning with confusion and fear. I'll do whatever it takes, Jason said, his voice firm. I'll prove that I didn't mean any harm. The mistress turned without another word, her long strides echoing in the silent hall. Jason followed, his heart still racing, unsure of what he had gotten himself into. As they moved through the palace, Jason couldn't help but notice the alien architecture around him. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Smooth, almost organic, with designs that seemed to shift and change the longer he looked at them. Every turn they made seemed to lead deeper into the heart of the palace. The walls were lined with strange symbols, and the air smelled faintly of something alien, something ancient. Jason's mind raced as he tried to figure out what had just happened. Who was this woman? What was this place? And what did she mean by atoning for his ignorance? He couldn't answer any of those questions yet, but one thing was certain. His journey had just taken an unexpected turn. Jason followed the mistress through the labyrinth of alien corridors, his steps hesitant yet determined. The walls around him seemed to pulse with life, as if the very stone of the palace was alive, watching him, judging him. Every corner they turned revealed more of the palace's grandeur, intricate carvings, glowing symbols, and towering structures that felt both ancient and impossibly advanced. The mistress, Xylaria, walked ahead, her long strides echoing in the silent halls. Her presence was commanding, and Jason couldn't help but feel like a mere shadow in her wake. He knew that this was no ordinary alien ruler. She radiated an aura of power that he could feel deep in his bones, and though he had seen many strange and dangerous places in his travels, nothing compared to this. They arrived at a large chamber, a vast hall with a high ceiling that seemed to disappear into the clouds above. At the center of the room was a raised platform, surrounded by strange pillars that hummed with energy. The mistress turned to face him, her piercing silver eyes locking onto his. "Welcome to my sanctuary," she said coldly, her voice carrying an edge that sent a shiver down Jason's spine. "This place is sacred to my people, a place of great power and history. You've entered without invitation, and now you must face the consequences." Jason felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had been hoping for a chance to explain himself, but from the look in Xylaria's eyes it was clear that reasoning would get him nowhere. "I didn't know," Jason said again, his voice softer now. "I had no idea this place was sacred. I only wanted to explore. Please, I didn't mean any harm." Xylaria's lips curled into a tight, almost imperceptible smile, though there was no warmth in it. "Ignorance is no excuse, human," she replied sharply. "You've trespassed in a place that is not meant for your kind. You have defiled something ancient and sacred, and now you must pay the price." Jason stood taller, trying to gather his courage. He had faced challenges before, though none as daunting as this. He needed to prove that he wasn't just some naive explorer who had stumbled into the wrong place. He had to show that he could handle whatever this powerful alien would throw at him. "What do you want from me?" Jason asked, his voice steady, despite the rising tension in the room. "I can make it right, just tell me how." Xylaria's eyes gleamed, and for a moment Jason wondered if she might simply kill him on the spot. But then she did something unexpected. She stepped back, her gaze never leaving his face. "I could end your life right now for your transgression," she said. "But I'm not a cruel ruler, at least not without cause. You will earn your place here, or you will leave. The choice is yours." Jason's heart raced. The way she spoke, so confidently, so powerfully, left him feeling small. But he wasn't about to back down. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to let fear stop him now. "Please," Jason said again, his voice soft but firm. "I want to make this right. I'm not your enemy. Just give me a chance." Xylaria regarded him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded once, sharply. "You'll prove yourself then," she said. "You'll undergo a trial. It is the only way to redeem yourself in the eyes of my people." Jason swallowed. "A trial? What kind of trial?" His mind raced with questions, but he knew better than to ask. He would have to face whatever was coming head-on. The mistress wasn't one to show mercy, and she didn't seem the type to be easily swayed by words. "Follow me," Xylaria commanded. She turned sharply and led him to the far end of the room, where an elaborate archway stood. The doorway led to a large chamber, and as they entered, Jason was struck by the stark contrast to the palace's grandeur. This room was simple, almost bare, with only a few strange devices scattered around. But there was something in the air, a heavy, tense energy that seemed to make the room feel like a battlefield. Xylaria faced him once again, her posture rigid. "The trial is simple," she said. "You will face challenges, each designed to test your worth. You will have to prove your strength, your wit, and your endurance. Fail, and you will be punished. Succeed, and you may leave with your life." Jason felt his stomach churn at her words. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, but this was different. He had no idea what kind of trials awaited him. Still, he wasn't going to let fear control him. He had to trust in his abilities, no matter how strange the situation. "I understand," he said, his voice steady now. "I'll do whatever it takes." Xylaria's gaze softened just for a moment, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough for Jason to notice. There was a flicker of something else behind her cold exterior, something that suggested she wasn't as indifferent as she seemed. But just as quickly, the moment passed, and she was once again the powerful, unyielding mistress. "Very well," she said, turning to a strange device on the wall. She pressed a series of buttons and a door on the far side of the room slid open, revealing a darkened passageway. "Your first trial begins now. Enter." Jason took a deep breath, gathering his courage. He didn't know what awaited him in the passageway, but he was ready to face it. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to give up now. With one final glance at Xylaria, who stood watching him with an unreadable expression, Jason stepped forward into the darkness, ready for whatever lay ahead. Jason had barely caught his breath after the last trial when the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The chamber he stood in flickered with a strange energy, the symbols on the walls glowing brighter and shifting, almost alive. He barely had time to register the change before the room's atmosphere seemed to warp around him. Something was coming. Something big. "Prepare yourself," Xylaria's voice echoed from the shadows, as cold and commanding as before. "The next trial is not one of wisdom. It is one of strength. You will face your greatest fear, human." Jason's heart skipped a beat. Strength. He had fought off dangerous creatures before, survived harsh environments, and braved hostile alien worlds, but none of that had ever made his heart race like it was now. What did Xylaria mean by his greatest fear? Was this trial physical? Mental? Or something deeper, more personal? Before he could voice his thoughts, the ground shook once more. The walls around him vibrated with an ominous hum, and the floor cracked open in a wide, gaping fissure. Jason jumped back, his hand instinctively, reaching for the weapon strapped to his side, but it was too late. From the dark abyss below, a massive, shadowy figure emerged, rising like a ghost from the depths. The creature was unlike anything Jason had ever seen. Tall, hulking, with limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally long. Its eyes burned with an eerie red light, and its mouth stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The creature's skin was a dark, almost liquid-like black, constantly shifting, like smoke in the wind. Jason's mind raced. Was this his greatest fear? Was it this nightmarish creature that had haunted him in his dreams? Or was it something more symbolic? Something deeper? The creature let out a low growl, and Jason realized that this wasn't just an illusion. It was real, and it was coming for him. "Fight it," Celeria's voice rang out again, cold and distant. "Face it and show your strength." Jason's heart pounded in his chest, but he steadied himself. He couldn't let fear control him. He had faced threats before, and this would be no different. He was a survivor, and survival meant pushing past his fear. He gripped the hilt of his weapon and steadied his stance, ready to face the creature. The beast lunged at him with terrifying speed, its claws slashing the air with a vicious hiss. Jason reacted instinctively, rolling to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's strike. The ground beneath him cracked as the beast's claws sank into the floor, leaving deep gashes in the stone. He could feel the weight of the trial pressing on him. This wasn't just a fight, it was a test of his resolve, his will to survive. He had to face this creature head-on, not just with strength but with courage. It wasn't the monster that would defeat him, it was his fear. And if he let that fear take control, he would lose. Jason quickly regained his footing and charged at the creature, his weapon raised. As he neared, the creature turned to face him, its eyes glowing with malicious intent. It let out a roar, a sound that sent chills down his spine, but Jason didn't flinch. He dove forward, aiming for the creature's chest, but the beast was faster. It sidestepped, sending Jason crashing into the ground. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but he quickly scrambled to his feet. Sweat dripped from his brow and his breath came in ragged gasps. The creature's laughter echoed in the room, a deep, mocking sound that only fueled his determination. He had to keep going. He couldn't stop now. "Get up, human." Xylaria's voice pierced through the chaos. "This trial is a reflection of your mind. Your fear will only win if you allow it to. Stand and fight." Jason's vision blurred as his body screamed in protest, but he refused to give up. He pushed through the pain and rose to his feet once again. The creature circled him, its claws twitching, its grin widening. It was toying with him, enjoying his struggle. But Jason knew that if he let the creature control the battle, he would lose. He needed to take charge. He lunged at the creature again, but this time he was more deliberate. He focused on his movements, blocking out the noise, the fear, and the overwhelming presence of the beast. He knew he couldn't defeat the creature with brute force alone. He needed to outthink it. The creature swiped at him, but Jason was ready. He ducked under the strike and rolled to the side, using his momentum to position himself behind the creature. Before it could react, Jason jabbed his weapon into the creature's side, a vulnerable spot he had spotted earlier. The creature howled in pain, stumbling backward. Jason didn't give it a chance to recover. He pressed his attack, moving with speed and precision, each strike landing with purpose. The beast roared in fury, its eyes glowing brighter. But Jason didn't stop. His fear had been replaced by determination. The creature's monstrous appearance no longer intimidated him. It was just an obstacle, something to overcome. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature collapsed to the ground with a deafening crash. Its body dissolved into shadows, leaving only the echo of its growl lingering in the air. Jason stood panting, his body aching, but victorious. He had faced his fear and overcome it. The room fell silent, the tremors fading away. Jason stood alone, in the now empty chamber, sweat dripping from his forehead. His heart was still racing, but he felt a sense of accomplishment he hadn't expected. He had passed the trial, not just by defeating the creature, but by conquering the fear that had once held him back. Xylaria's voice returned, this time softer, more respectful. "You have done well, human. You have shown that you are more than just strength. You have proven that you can face your deepest fears and emerge victorious." Jason wiped the sweat from his brow and exhaled deeply. "I didn't do it alone," he muttered. Though he hadn't seen her, he felt Xylaria's presence watching him, and for the first time, he felt a sense of respect from her, one that wasn't rooted in disdain or judgment. Xylaria's voice echoed again, this time with a note of something that almost sounded like approval. "The trial is not over, but you have passed the hardest part. There will be more challenges ahead. But now, you understand that true strength comes from within. Jason nodded, his body still trembling with adrenaline. The hardest part was over, but he knew there were still more trials to face, and somehow he wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever came next, he was ready. Jason stepped into the darkened passageway, the air growing colder with each step. The door behind him shut with a loud thud, sealing him into the unknown. He could barely make out the walls, their surfaces smooth and alien, with faint glowing, symbols scattered across them. The silence in the corridor was unnerving, the only sound being his footsteps echoing off the stone floor. He moved cautiously, every instinct telling him that something was watching, waiting. He had faced danger before in his travels, but nothing felt as tense as this moment. The Mistress, Xylaria, had made it clear that he was here to prove his worth. Fail, and he would pay the price. But succeed, and perhaps he would earn the right to leave her domain alive. Jason didn't know if he could trust her, but he had no choice but to try. The corridor stretched on for what felt like hours, twisting and turning as if it had no end. Jason tried to steady his breathing, his mind racing with thoughts of what might come next. What kind of trials would he face? Would they be physical, mental, or something else entirely? He could only guess. Finally, the passageway opened into a large chamber, its walls adorned with intricate designs and alien symbols that seemed to shimmer and shift as he moved. In the center of the room was a large pedestal, bathed in an eerie blue light. On top of the pedestal lay an object, something small, but its presence was undeniable. Jason approached it cautiously, feeling a strange pull toward it. As he neared, a voice echoed through the chamber, filling the space with an undeniable authority. "Do not touch it." Jason froze. The voice was familiar, Xylaria's. He turned, searching for her in the shadows, but saw nothing. The room was empty, save for the pedestal and the strange object. "Why not?" Jason called out, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "What is this? What am I supposed to do?" Xylaria's voice responded, not from any particular direction, but seeming to surround him. "That object is a key to knowledge. It holds the answers to many questions, but it is not for you to take. Not yet." Jason frowned, confused. He didn't understand what she meant. Was this part of the trial? Or was she testing him, trying to see if he would follow instructions? Either way, the curiosity gnawed at him. He couldn't deny that he wanted to touch the object, to understand its significance. "I don't understand," he said, taking a step back from the pedestal. "You said I had to prove myself. How do I do that?" There was a long pause before Xylaria's voice returned, this time softer, more thoughtful. "By choosing wisely. You must show that you understand the value of what you seek, that you are not blinded by greed or ambition." Jason thought about her words. He had spent most of his life seeking knowledge, finding new worlds, and uncovering lost treasures. But this was different. This wasn't just about discovering something hidden. This was about respect, about understanding the power of what lay before him. As he stood there, lost in thought, he suddenly felt something shift in the room. The air grew thicker, heavier, and a low hum vibrated through the walls. Jason's heart began to race. Something was changing, something was coming. Then the walls began to glow brighter than before. The symbols on the walls shifted, coming to life as if they were responding to his presence. Jason felt a strange pull, a connection, as if the entire room was alive and aware of him. His body tingled with energy, and for a brief moment, he felt a deep sense of understanding. This place, this palace, wasn't just a structure. It was a living, breathing entity. Suddenly, the object on the pedestal began to glow, radiating a brilliant light that filled the entire chamber. Jason stepped back, shielding his eyes from the intense brightness. The air crackled with energy, and he could feel the power emanating from the object. He hesitated. The trial was a test, but what was it testing him for? Was it his willpower, his wisdom, or something else entirely? Then, a soft voice spoke, barely a whisper. "Trust yourself." Jason blinked, confused. The voice, Xylaria's, was different this time. There was something softer in it, something more vulnerable. He turned his head toward the source of the voice, but Xylaria was still nowhere to be seen. The room was still empty, the pedestal glowing with an otherworldly light. Yet despite the uncertainty and the intensity of the moment, Jason felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. He knew what he had to do. Slowly, carefully, he approached the pedestal once more. This time his steps were measured, each movement deliberate. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him, but he also felt something else, a deep understanding that had eluded him before. As his hand hovered above the object, he realized what Xylaria had meant. It wasn't about taking the object or about gaining power. It was about restraint, about understanding that some knowledge was not meant to be possessed, but respected. He wasn't here to claim the key, to wield its power. He was here to prove that he understood its significance, that he could resist the urge to claim something that didn't belong to him. He stepped back, his hand lowering. "I understand," Jason said aloud, his voice steady. "I'm not here to take what isn't mine." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then the light from the pedestal began to fade, and the hum in the air quieted. The symbols on the walls shifted again, this time settling into a calm, steady glow. Jason exhaled, feeling the weight of the room lift. He had passed the first test, not by taking the object, but by understanding its power and his own limitations. He had chosen wisely, and in doing so had proven something to himself, and perhaps to Xylaria as well. As the chamber returned to silence, Xylaria's voice spoke again, this time clearer, without the sharpness it had held before. "You have shown wisdom, human. But the trials are not over. You have more to prove." Jason nodded. He knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but he felt something shifting within him. This trial was about more than just surviving. It was about understanding, about seeing beyond the surface. He was beginning to see Xylaria in a new light, as someone not just powerful but also deeply wise. And for the first time since he had entered this strange, alien world, he felt a connection with her, not as an enemy or a trespasser, but as someone who might in time come to understand him. The bond, though still fragile, had begun to form. And with it, the hope that he might survive this strange trial and leave with something more valuable than treasure. A true understanding of this place, its power, and its keeper. Jason stood alone on the rocky landscape, the sound of the retreating mercenaries' footsteps fading into the distance. The air was still, the tension from the recent conflict slowly draining from his body. His chest heaved as he tried to steady his breathing, and for a moment, he let himself feel the weight of what he had just accomplished. He had defied the mercenaries, and in doing so he had proven to himself, and to Xylaria, that he wasn't just another pawn in a game of power. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the barren ground. The blood-red sky slowly darkened, and Jason could feel the coolness of the evening creeping in. But despite the stillness, there was something in the air, a sense of anticipation, as though something was about to change. He looked toward the horizon, wondering what would come next. He had passed the trials, faced fear, and proven his strength. But was that enough? Would Xylaria accept him, or was there more to be done? Suddenly, a presence filled the air, and Jason's heart skipped a beat. It was Xylaria's voice, but this time it was different. There was no coldness in her words, no sharpness. This time it was almost soft. "Jason," she said, her voice echoing in his mind. "You have passed the trials. You have proven yourself in ways that no one else has. I was wrong to doubt you." Jason looked around, but Xylaria was nowhere to be seen. Her voice had no physical form, yet it was unmistakable. It surrounded him, filled him with a sense of understanding, and for the first time, he felt a bond between them. Something more than just ruler and intruder, more than mere respect. There was a connection now, one that transcended the trials and the battles. It was as though their fates were intertwined in ways neither of them had fully understood. Didn't do it alone, Jason replied, his voice quiet but firm. You've shown me things I couldn't have seen on my own. You've given me a reason to fight, to stand my ground. For that, I'm grateful. There was a pause, and then Xylaria's voice returned, tinged with something that felt like genuine admiration. You have a strength I did not expect, human. It is rare for someone to come to this place and endure the trials as you have. Most would have faltered, given up, or failed. But you have done what no one has done before. Jason's mind whirled as he processed her words. He had come here seeking answers, seeking knowledge, but he had found something much more valuable. He had found himself. He had discovered that his true strength wasn't just in his physical abilities, but in his ability to stand by his convictions, to make the right choices even when the odds were against him. I didn't know what I was stepping into, Jason admitted. I came here looking for adventure, for treasure, but I've learned that there's more at stake than that. I've learned what it means to fight for something greater than myself. Xylaria's voice seemed to soften, and for the first time Jason felt the full weight of her respect. You have seen what I have seen, human. You understand now that power is not the ultimate goal. It is the ability to protect, to preserve, and to guide. And you have shown that you are capable of all three. Jason felt a surge of something inside him, a feeling of connection, of purpose. He wasn't just a wanderer lost in the galaxy anymore. He had a role to play, a purpose to fulfill, and in some strange way, it seemed that Xylaria, the powerful mistress of this alien world, had recognized that. Thank you, Jason said, his voice sincere. For everything. There was a brief silence before Xylaria spoke again. I have seen many come and go seeking power, wealth, or fame, but none have understood the true meaning of this place. None have looked beyond the surface to see what truly matters. Jason looked up at the sky, the stars beginning to twinkle, faintly in the growing darkness. He felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He had faced so much fear and uncertainty, but now, standing in this strange land, he felt like he had finally found his place. You've shown me that the universe isn't just about taking, Jason said. It's about understanding, about respect. It's about finding balance, not just fighting for dominance. Xylaria's voice was almost a whisper now, a thread of something almost like warmth in it. You are wise beyond your years, human. There is much you can teach the galaxy. Perhaps there is more for you here than you realize. Jason felt the weight of her words settle on him. He had come here thinking he was just a lone traveler, seeking adventure. But now, he realized that he had the potential to be so much more. To be a force for change, a bridge between worlds, a voice of reason in a galaxy torn by conflict and division. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. The challenges ahead would not be easy, but he was no longer afraid. He had proven himself in the trials, and now he understood his place in the grand scheme of things. He wasn't just a wanderer. He was part of something bigger, something that could make a difference. As he stood there, the landscape stretching out before him, Jason knew that his journey had only just begun. He had found a purpose, a connection, and a path forward. And though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear. He was no longer alone. Xylaria's voice echoed in his mind one final time. The galaxy is vast, human, and you have the potential to change it. But remember, true power lies not in strength, but in the choices we make. Choose wisely, and the universe will follow. Jason nodded, his heart filled with a newfound sense of determination. I will, he promised. I'll make the right choices. And with that, he turned toward the horizon, ready to face whatever the future held. The trials had been just the beginning. The real journey was about to begin. Jason's breath came in short gasps, his body still shaking from the intense trial he had just survived. The dark, cold chamber around him was now eerily silent, but his mind raced with the events that had just unfolded. The creature had been a manifestation of his deepest fears, but he had faced it head-on, overcoming not just the beast but the fear that had once seemed insurmountable. He had proven something to himself, and perhaps to Xylaria as well. As the echoes of his victory slowly faded, he turned toward the doorway through which he had entered. But before he could take a step, the walls of the chamber began to hum again. Jason froze. The vibrations in the air grew stronger, almost like a warning. His senses heightened, every nerve on edge. Xylaria's voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. "You've passed the first trial, human, but there is another test. It is not one of strength, but one of choice." Jason frowned. What did she mean by choice? What kind of test was coming next? He didn't have time to think further before the chamber around him began to shift. The walls transformed, changing into a scene that looked oddly familiar. A barren landscape under a blood-red sky, with jagged mountains rising in the distance. At first, Jason thought it was another illusion, but the heat from the air, the dryness of the ground beneath his feet told him otherwise. This place was real, and the scene unfolding before him felt incredibly intense. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Jason squinted, his eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, he could see a large, dark figure moving toward him. A shape, far too familiar. The moment his gaze landed on it, his heart skipped a beat. It was a group of armed warriors dressed in the same dark armor as the figures he had encountered earlier in his travels. Mercenaries, hired by a rival faction in the galaxy. They were heading directly toward him. "Xylaria, what is this?" Jason demanded, turning in every direction to locate the Mistress. But there was no answer, only the crackling sound of distant energy blasts. "Why are they here?" Xylaria's voice answered him, now colder than ever. "They are here because I allowed them to be. I have tested you for strength, for wisdom, and now I test you for your loyalty." Jason's eyes widened. Loyalty? He wasn't sure what she meant, but the mercenaries were already closing in. They were far from friendly. Jason had dealt with these kinds of hired guns before, but this was different. The stakes were much higher now, and he could sense that Xylaria was not just testing his physical abilities, she was testing his morals. The mercenaries stopped a few yards away from him. Their leader, a tall, heavily armored man, stepped forward. His face was hidden beneath a dark helmet, but the aura of danger around him was clear. "Jason," the leader's voice echoed, low and threatening. "We've been ordered to take you. Xylaria sent us. You'll come with us, or we'll make sure you don't leave here alive." Jason's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. These mercenaries were ruthless, no doubt about it, and they had the numbers and firepower to back them up. He had to think quickly. "Xylaria wouldn't send you. After me," Jason said, trying to buy time. "This is a mistake," the leader scoffed. "You think she cares about you, human? She's testing you. She's using you. This is about power, not honor. And if you don't comply, well, it'll be the last mistake you make." Jason's pulse quickened. He wasn't about to back down, but he also knew that fighting them head-on would lead to certain defeat. He needed another way. He glanced around, taking in the terrain. His mind worked quickly. There had to be something, some way to turn this situation to his advantage. Suddenly, it hit him. These mercenaries didn't know the terrain as well as he did. They were overconfident, thinking they had the upper hand, but he could use the environment to create a distraction. He reached down and grabbed a small rock from the ground, tossing it to the side. The noise echoed through the air, and for a brief moment, the mercenaries' attention wavered. That was all the time Jason needed. He dashed to the nearest rock formation, using it as cover. The mercenaries immediately opened fire, their weapons blasting energy shots that tore through the air. But Jason wasn't there anymore. He moved swiftly, ducking and weaving, staying out of their line of sight. "You cannot hide from us, human," the leader shouted, his voice filled with frustration. "We will find you." Jason didn't waste time. He knew that he couldn't stay in one spot for long. The longer he waited, the more likely it was they would figure out where he was hiding. He moved quickly, circling behind the mercenaries, using the rocky outcrops as cover. Then, in an instant, he made his move. He rushed forward, aiming for the leader who was too focused on searching the area to notice him. Jason grabbed the leader by the arm and twisted it behind his back, knocking the weapon from his hand. In the same movement, he kicked the leader's legs out from under him, sending the mercenary crashing to the ground. The other mercenaries rushed toward him, but they were too late. Jason had already taken control of the situation. He grabbed the leader's blaster and aimed it at the nearest mercenary. "Stay back," Jason warned, his voice low and steady. "This isn't your fight." The mercenaries hesitated, clearly shocked by how quickly Jason had turned the situation around. But before they could react, Jason shouted, "You want me? Then fight for it." His defiance hung in the air like a challenge, and the mercenaries knew that Jason wasn't backing down. He had proven himself time and again, and now he was showing them that he wasn't just another victim to be captured. After a tense moment of silence, the mercenaries reluctantly lowered their weapons. "You win, human," the leader muttered, glaring at him. "But don't think this is over." Jason's breath steadied as he lowered the blaster. "It's not over yet," he replied. "But you'll leave now, and Xylaria will know that I've chosen my own path." With a final, bitter glare, the mercenaries retreated, disappearing back into the wasteland. Jason stood there, his chest rising and falling with each breath, feeling the weight of the decision he had just made. And though he knew the fight was far from over, he also knew one thing. He had made the right choice. He had chosen to stand his ground, to defy the mercenaries and to prove to Xylaria, and to himself, that his loyalty wasn't to power or fear, but to what was right. As the mercenaries disappeared into the distance, Xylaria's voice echoed in his mind. "Well done, human. You have proven your strength and your loyalty, but the trials are not over." Jason's heart raced, but he stood tall. The challenges ahead would not be easy, but he was ready.